In the first couple of days after the attack, it seemed like India had picked a side. And then there's that picture of Foreign Minister.
We should have condoled the death of Khamenei without accusing the United States, without even mentioning the United States. To recognize the fact that a head of state, contrary to norms of international law, has been politically assassinated.
You criticized the US attack on the Iranian warship.
They could have waited for the ship to sail back near the coast of Iran coast or Oman coast.
The theatre of war.
In the theatre of war, they could have sunk it.
At what level does this, from a supply chain risk, become a national security issue for us vis-a-vis our LNG imports? Can we see potentially Indian Navy boats with American boats opening up and providing security to vessels?
Absolutely not.
Strait of Hormuz?
Absolutely not. United States will never take the risk of sending in their navy to open up the Strait of Hormuz because they will lose their naval vessels. Deep water channel in the Strait of Hormuz is in the Iranian territorial water, and they don't need long-range missiles or even short-range missiles, torpedoes and other things. They can sink anything. LNG business is a problem because we are highly dependent on Qatar for LNG,
Right.
And they have stopped producing LNG. What the Americans and Israel have done is to deeply hurt our interests in the Gulf.
1 crore people almost in the region.
And about 40-45% of our energy comes from here, about 40% of our remittances come from there. Who can replace this? Can Israel replace this? Can United States replace this?
If this kind of a comment which was made at the Raisina gets replicated in domestic politics in America, it's going to hurt American universities, American companies. Well, good luck to them.
We'll make you our partners, but you will be under our control. But what will happen is that they will lose control willy-nilly soon as we develop our own capabilities. They'll become dependent on us, not in an aggressive way like China. At one time, some leaders spanning the various continents were able to get together, like it happened in Indira Gandhi's time when we had big proposal for global nuclear disarmament. But today, there are no world leaders who can join hands, respected leaders who can then say, please stop this. There is a huge vacuum in global leadership.
This episode is powered by ShipRocket. Namaste, Jai Hind. You're watching or listening to another edition of the ANR podcast with Smita Prakash. Today we discuss the current situation in West Asia, and in the studio with me is former Foreign Secretary Kanwal Sibal, one of the sharpest voices on Indian foreign policy. Kanwal Sibal has also served as India's ambassador to Turkey, Egypt, France and Russia. Also in the studio with me is my colleague Ishan Prakash. Thank you so much, Ambassador. You're here. We are very, very happy, Mr. Sibal, that you're part of the podcast. Ishan and I have a bunch of questions, and I'm sure the viewers and listeners also want to know what is India's stand in this war that none of us signed up for, but the entire world has got involved. I think when we talk about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, we talk about welfare for the world and welfare for every citizen of the globe. But now we are talking in terms of this interconnectivity where we are all signatories to a war which none of us wanted. None of us were part of it, but willy-nilly we are all part of this war now. You have strongly criticized let me begin with the news of the moment, which is that you criticized the US attack on the Iranian warship IRIs Dana. And you think that the incident could have long-term implications for India in the Indian Ocean, or is it something that we'll be able to surpass this hurdle? What do you think will happen?
Long-term implications, I don't know, because I don't think the theatre of war is the Indian Ocean. If there is going to be a security threat which has to be deterred, it will be China that will be the threat, not Iran or the United States or Israel. It just so happens that the United States saw an opportunity to sink the Iranian ship, which they knew was there because it had participated in the exercise, and the US also had been invited. But I understand they withdrew at the last minute, and their only participation was the PI surveillance aircraft.
I'm going to interrupt you right here. Sorry for that, but I just have to put it out there that social media today, at the time of recording this on Monday, there are fake AI generated videos of the Indian Army chief saying that there was sharing of intelligence that India did with Israel and with the US regarding location of the ship, the Iranian ship. These are fake videos, and I want to put it right in the beginning that if you are circulating these fake videos, it's something, not only is it anti-national act that you are doing, but it is an anti-India act. So wherever you are, it is an anti-India act, and action can be taken against you for spreading false information which is going to impact on civilians as well as people wearing the uniform of whichever country has got involved in this war. Sorry, sir.
No, I agree with what you said, because it is totally absurd that the Indian Army chief or anybody else would want to share the location of the Iranian ship when actually they have their own P-8 aircraft, which is a very efficient, very powerful aircraft, which actually detects even nuclear submarines. And it was there. It was a participant in the exercises. It was tracking, obviously, the movement of the Dana and sent signals, presumably, to the submarine to position itself in a way that whenever the Dana moved out of the territorial waters of Sri Lanka and was in so-called international waters, they could just sink it. We have absolutely no role in this at all. And you're right in saying that such fake videos should not be circulated. But coming to the larger question you asked, the problem here is something different. The entire Milan exercise, the philosophy of it, is that the navies of the region should come together. There should be confidence building. They should cooperate with each other in ensuring that these waters are safe. There's freedom of navigation, and any potential areas of conflict should actually be identified and solutions found through collaboration and cooperation. Look, we have this Sagar concept, security and growth for all. Then it's the Mahasagar concept, where we assume certain security provider obligations and this and that. So the entire philosophy of what we want to do in the Indian Ocean, and we've been paying a lot of attention to the Indian Ocean to ensure that there is peace and stability, and there is a cooperative manner in which countries can deal with issues that arise. And there are many issues: illegal fishing, this and that, and of course protecting the sea lanes of communication, where all the energy and trade flows, which are vital to the economies of East Asia, flow through this region. So what the US attack has done is to disturb that kind of outlook India has wanted to promote all these years.
What more could we have done? Should we have accompanied the vessel further down, or should we have asked Sri Lankans to help with us and accompany the vessel further down?
No.
Or should we have advised the Iranian vessel not to have got out of shores?
Not our responsibility. Why were we second guessing what the Americans will do? There was no need to do this. Now, if they wanted to take out the ship, and that's the sad part of it, they could have waited. It's not as if their arms are not very long. Their arms are very, very long. So they could have waited for the ship to sail back near the coast of Iran coast or Oman coast.
The theater of war.
In the theater of war, they could have sunk it.
Yeah. They have expanded the theater of war by doing this?
Exactly, unnecessarily. And it is disregard for India's whole approach to peace and stability in the Indian Ocean. And moreover, if we are in the Quad and everything else, we are together with the United States for what? Not to deal with Iran, to deal with the potential Chinese threat. So why do this?
So we opened it up for the vulnerability of the Chinese to tell our neighbors in the Indian Ocean region that India cannot be a net security provider in the Indian Ocean region?
No, that was never the intention. We are not a net security provider against the United States of America.
Correct.
That's totally contrary to what we are trying to do in the Quad and the Malabar exercises.
Yeah.
I mean, if you are doing these such intensive exercises, and we brought in Australia and Japan, it's not to deal with the
US
deal
as
with
an
a threat
aggressor?
from the United States. Certainly not. I think that's not the way I would look at it.
Ambassador, when speaking of diplomatic norms over here, when a shooting war commences, do countries really adhere to such norms, or do they just take out a target when it's there?
A couple of things. One, firstly, the war has not been declared. If the war had been declared formally, then yes, then United States can attack any asset of Iran anywhere if they so want. But they have not declared the war, which means they wanted to contain it. They want to contain it in the region. Now, if that is the approach, it's not an all-out war. Then why attack a ship a couple of thousand miles away
Ambassador,
from?
isn't that just a legal ambiguity? Because, see, the Ayatollah was taken out by American strikes. Iran responded by saying, now get ready for a total war. March 4th, the torpedo attack happened. So there was a gap of 4-5 days where there was dramatic escalation between both nations. So in a situation like this, strategically, India, yes, is absolved of any sort of wrongdoing that way once the ship left Indian territorial waters. How much more could India have done, really,
No.
at that point?
Well, I'll come back to that, but to your other question. Now, Trump is saying that they've sunk the entire Iranian navy, they've sunk 25 naval ships and this and that of Iran. And Dana had come here for participating in a peace exercise. And the peace protocols of this exercise do not allow ships to carry their full ammunition or any ammunition unless specifically they are participating in some live fire exercise in the open sea.
Right.
So the Dana was not on a war mission at all, where it was threatening in any way anything that United States has in this vast area. U.S. has no interest in this vast area. So why take out the ship just in the vicinity of India?
Yes.
Why do that?
I'm trying to play the devil's advocate over here. So I'm going to throw a bunch of
Yeah,
hypotheticals
sure.
at you. In no way do I condone what
No,
happened.
no.
But how true is this? How verifiable is it that the Dana was not actually carrying a full load? I mean, see, Operation Midnight Hammer happened last year. Since then, Iran has been on a heightened sense of alert, right? America has been threatening decapitation strikes for the better part of 2025, and they went ahead and did it in 2026. To think that an Iranian warship was operating in this region, idea being that they would go back through the port of Hormuz back to home base, do you really think that they were not carrying any arms or ammunition, or were not in a position to defend itself had the need
Couple of
risen?
things. That the exercise, Milan exercise, was not organized at short notice. It's a biennial exercise. So a notice had gone beforehand. How the exercise would take place, what will be the kind of participation that the Iranian ships would have, and this and that, all had obviously been discussed. And the peace protocol certainly is that they will not carry full load of ammunition. As I said, they can carry some ammunition measured precisely for the live fire exercise in which they would be participating. Now, I don't know whether...
Can that be accountable? I mean,
Oh, yes.
can it be verified that this is the amount
Of
of
course, when you have
ammunition?
this parade fleet review, you have fully armed ships, anything can happen. Anything can happen. Any disaster can happen. Ammunition can explode. Something unintentional can happen. It's like your Republic Day parade. You got all your tanks and everything else.
With Sadat, it happened. Anwar Sadat. It was from the tank.
Yeah, and sort of
The turret goes down.
It goes down and this and that. But supposing there was something in it, then what happens?
Of course.
Yeah.
Now that is one. The other is that actually nobody believed that United States would do what it did.
Yes.
So when the Dana came here, they didn't have this in mind. That when we go back, we're going to be facing the full might of
The US Armada positioned there.
Positioned there.
Yes.
And even if they were armed, what chance did they have against a nuclear submarine? No chance at all. So
Yeah.
I think these are issues that are being raised to obfuscate, to my mind, the enormity of what the United States had done, which was totally unnecessary.
Yes.
Unnecessary. And they were on the ships also, the chaps who were part of the band, and it's the band
Yeah.
that played before our president. They took the salute. She took the salute of the of this personnel who paraded before her. There are Indian sensitivities involved, and therefore, to my mind, it was not necessary for United States to show this demonstration of force. That anywhere in the world, if there's some Iranian asset, we're going to take it off. This kind of macho
Belligerence. Yeah.
Yeah.
attitude and belligerence. Yes.
Ambassador Sibal, in the first couple of days after the attack, it seemed like India had picked a side. Then comes this torpedoing of the ship. And then there's that picture of foreign ministers. What did you make of that? Was there a calibration that India did after that?
I commented on that on my ex post.
Yeah.
That it was thoughtfully done, well done, and it was in a sense to balance things. And the fact that he publicized this was intended to send a political message to the United States and to Iran that they are welcome guests. We are talking to them, and to a little bit efface that impression that we've taken sides.
Right. So if anybody had doubts on that strategic autonomy part, I think, or strategic alignment, whatever you want to term it as, this photograph kind of put that in perspective, right?
In a small way, yes.
You see, there was another
In a
Iranian-
small way, yes. I'll tell you why. We have, of course, very, how should I say, interests in Israel, which are very important and vital in many ways on the defense side and this and that. So the Prime Minister went there, paid a visit, a state visit to Israel at a time when the threat of war was there and the United States armada was in position. And Netanyahu has been baying for Iran's blood and pushing the United States to attack, and made no bones of the fact that since Iran was at its weakest at this point in time, this was the time to take out this regime permanently. So despite all this, which is obvious, the Prime Minister chose to make the visit with the larger Indian security and political interests in view. Now, and then Netanyahu fully exploited this visit to his advantage. Of course, he honored our Prime Minister, who spoke at the Knesset. He gave him this award and everything else. So he boosted his own political position within Israel. And for him, it's extremely important that the leader of a country like India, for 1.4 billion people,
A democracy.
and a democracy, has no reservations in an atmosphere where there's a likelihood of a war, to visit Israel and embrace Israel. Now, that's what you said. We seem to have taken sides. Now, maybe our own thinking is that Israel and United States have the upper hand, and Iran is on the back foot. And we could take this risk because at the end of the day, we will be with the stronger side. This could be the reasoning. I don't know if this was the reasoning, but this could be the reasoning. But now, to place ourselves once again in a position where we are not seen as aligned to the other side in the context of what has happened thereafter in terms of taking out Khamenei, which is such an utter violation of any norm of international behavior, international law, the UN Charter, and everything else. And of course, open calls for regime change and everything else. If we had wanted to balance it a little bit, I think personally we should have condoled the death of Khamenei without accusing the United States, without even mentioning the United States, purely as to recognize the fact that a head of state of a country, contrary to norms of international law, has been politically assassinated.
So the signing of the register a couple of days later was too little too late?
So I'm glad that Vikram Misri went and signed the register in order to in some ways, undo the impression that we were remiss in not immediately expressing condolences. And I think we've also missed the opportunity to, as I said in my post also, to express our condolences for the death of the Iranian sailors with the sinking of INS Dana. There again, we need not have at all referred to why this happened, in the sense, don't mention the United States, don't mention anything. Since they were your guests, purely on an humanitarian basis, you express condolences for what had happened.
We have a vocabulary which is very large where we could use those
And I
words.
suggested that it need not have been the defense ministry or the government. It could simply have been the US Navy on a platform of brotherhood with naval people, whoever our guests, purely on that basis.
Iranian Navy. Huh?
Iranian, sorry, I keep saying that.
Yes.
But we haven't done that. So I don't know. This,
Do you buy the Israeli clarification that the opportunity, the window to assassinate Khamenei opened up immediately after PM Modi's departure from Israel? I'm not saying that they probably shared that information with PM Modi, but
I don't,
their clarification
I don't think we should at all accept this reasoning or endorse this reasoning, because that makes our Prime Minister party to the whole thing. I just don't buy it one bit. I know from the inside, as you probably know, that Netanyahu has been pressing for a long time for our Prime Minister to visit there.
Yeah.
And we wanted him to come. But he said, quite rightly, that I can't overfly countries because my own security is in danger. So he kept pressing our Prime Minister to go. And then Prime Minister decided to go. So it's not as if Prime Minister decided to go at this point in time. There was a lot of pressure building up for a long time. And given our stakes in Israel, I think Prime Minister felt that there never will be the right time to go to Israel.
Right.
So therefore, if I have to go, then I'll go. But they had planned their operation, and they waited 2 days after he had gone so as not to embarrass our Prime Minister, and launched this operation. I don't for a moment believe that they would have discussed their plans with the Prime Minister. Look, Iran is very important to us in a different way. Not as important as Israel is currently, but it's very important in a different way. Our neighbor, huge oil resources, the Chabahar business, the international north-south trade corridor, and you can then talk about your civilizational and cultural contacts, etc., etc. And then it is so positioned geostrategically that you can't just ignore Iran. It is the hub for movements towards the Gulf, movements towards Central Asia, and towards Russia, and then neighbor of Afghanistan, where there's a huge problem now, and then the Pakistan factor, which also is very much part of our regional calculations, then the entire Shia-Sunni thing, which is fact on the ground in this region and elsewhere. So for that reason, Iran is important. Even though, as I said, in the current configuration of our cooperation with this region, not so. But not so important as with Israel. But far more important are our stakes in the Gulf countries. Far more. And I'm convinced, and I'm very strongly of the view, that what the Americans and Israel have done is to deeply hurt our interests in the Gulf. Figures, 9 million our expatriates there.
Yes. 1 crore people almost in the region.
And about 40-45% of our energy comes from here. About 40% of our remittances come from there. Who can replace this? Can Israel replace this? Can the United States replace this? So if this gets destabilized, then all our friendship with the United States and Israel, how will they compensate for this tremendous blow to our actual cooperation and the future? Look, we have signed this FTA with the UAE. Is the actually nodal point of our long-term cooperation with this region. And you look at what we are trying to do. with these countries. They
Yes,
have
the
a lot of
IMEC corridor also goes through Hormuz.
that is there, but more than that, these countries now want to go beyond
Oil.
And they are looking at a future which will be based on making this region utterly business friendly, becoming a financial hub, very efficient, where people can come and do business in the most efficient way possible. And for entertainment and good living and everything else they're providing. This is the model that they have in the future. Now, this model, to my mind, has been very severely damaged. And UAE is at the center of it. And we have how many? 3 million people in the UAE?
Yes.
So haven't the Americans and the Israelis thought of this? Why is it that Israeli interests are absolutely the core of the problems in this region? And nobody else's interests need to be protected. I don't think Trump has ever discussed with Modi this war that he wants to unleash on Iran.
Yes.
So I think...
and how the American media is positioning this, that Netanyahu was about to strike Iran. This was even Marco Rubio said. Therefore, before Netanyahu strikes, we decided to jump ahead and do it.
You think that they think that the entire the rest of the world are fools and they have no experience about these things and they can say anything and get away with it. I mean, it's complete nonsense what he's saying. That we knew Israel was going to attack Iran. So why didn't you stop Israel from doing that? Why didn't you? Because Israel has all along based its strategy in Iran to bring US in. Because they know individually they cannot fight Iran.
Israel says it's an existential crisis. They were weeks away from making a nuclear bomb, and had they got access to that, they would have obliterated Israel. So they just had to do what they had to do now.
Complete nonsense. Utter nonsense. Where is the proof?
Steve Witkoff says
since the whole thing began with Iran, its nuclear thing, how many years ago? And in 2015, in order precisely to prevent that scenario, Obama signed this nuclear deal with Iran, JCPOA.
Yeah.
At that time, if you see my writings, I analyzed clearly the kind of concessions Iran had made, which I said, and I said it in writing, that no sovereign, self-respecting country would make. But they made it. They made it. And they opened up their entire nuclear installations
for the
to
IAEA.
very intrusive IAEA inspections, which continued. IAEA has, even now, Grossi has said that they have no
ways to make a nuclear bomb.
They have no information that Iran was working towards developing a nuclear bomb, but he qualified this because he wants to be the next UN Secretary General, so he has to be in the good books of the other side. But there are areas where there were suspicious activities by Iranians and this and that. But the central point, he said that we have no information that they were working towards developing any nuclear bomb. So, since 2015, after 11 years, if you recall what Netanyahu said at the podium of the UN, he had brought out a chart where he said
a
that
bomb with those markings over there.
And all, and this narrative that, it's they're 5 days away, 10 days away, 1 month away. This has gone on for 11 years.
Right.
So this is trying to, fool public opinion, and we shouldn't get caught in this narrative. We should look at it more clearly. But and one point in this is important in this. I can accept Israel's concern about Iran's discourse towards Israel. And I had an occasion to mention to somebody who's now very, very prominent officially in Iran, I won't mention the name, when he was visiting India a few years ago, that why do you have this discourse that you questioning the right of Israel to exist? Is the right of Israel to exist an existential threat for you? I mean, you're such an old civilization, you have survived thousands of years. So your future is not dependent on what Israel does or does not do. But when you have this discourse, your friends find it very difficult to support you. Because you are the only one who is saying that. The Arab countries, who should have the principal responsibility for picking up the Palestinian cause, they don't go this far. But you do. And therefore you attract to yourself the entire hostility of Israel and the United States.
Interesting. Yeah.
What did your friend say?
I'll tell you after the recording is over.
We're not taking names, but what was the Iranian thought at that time? The leadership's thought. It's an argument that everyone makes.
The leadership thought was that we have a great burden of debt to the PLO. Because when the 1979 revolution
Yeah,
took
Sarah.
place and there was this internal civil kind of a war, the PLO sent its effectives on the ground and they helped to maintain law and order. And in a sense, the Iranian revolution survived because of the help they got from the PLO.
अब PLO ही नहीं रहा तो फिर क्या
But the
फायदा?
Palestinian
उसकी
state was
बात कर
always.
रहा हूँ ना,
हाँ, but अब तो
1979.
नहीं है ना, but still that debt.
Secondly, and this I've forgotten the details of it, of the tremendous links they have since centuries with Lebanon.
You're right.
And such close ideological religious ties with Lebanon. And explain to me in detail what it
I
was,
understand.
but it is difficult for me to remember the
But
arguments.
This is what happens when you go to war with the civilizational state, because there are so many linkages that they don't know about.
No,
So-
but the
Yeah.
point I was coming to this. Therefore, I hold Iran responsible for the calamity that, that has befallen it because of the stance they have been taking. However, if Israel itself over the years had changed its policies towards the Palestinians, they were on much stronger ground to say that we have an existential threat because Iran is targeting us and developing capacities. But what did they do? They have trampled over the rights of the Palestinians constantly. What they did recently in Gaza, but before that in Gaza. And then, of course, the West Bank, the settlements. Even the Americans were very unhappy in previous administrations that they were continuing to expand their settlements. And today you've seen what they're doing on the West Bank. So if on their side they had accommodated the Palestinians and moved independently of Iran's pressure towards a two-state solution, genuinely so, not Netanyahu's position, oh, my dead body, I'll never allow a two-state solution, then I would say Israel had a strong case. Because they were showing that they were willing to accommodate the fundamental rights of the Palestinians and work out a solution for a two-nation state. But they did absolutely the opposite, which means that by their conduct, they fueled Iran's, animosity, hostility towards Israel, and made that the centerpiece of their policy in this region. So I think one can't absolve Israel also for not taking some steps which would have increased the moral basis of their policy.
Let me come to the Indian position again. Some of us who met with officials, but and got some point of view which cannot be reported, Chatham House rules. But if I was to say this, that some of them say that in the initial days, we could not take a strident stand one way or the other, had to be ambiguous, even though it seemed like we'd taken a step, because we cannot antagonize the United States at this point. We have a Viksit Bharat goal. We need tech for that. You take a stand today which can upset that path. If we don't get access to advanced technology from America, if they decide to punish us, which they have in the past, we will not have access to that technology, and we need that for our youth. We need that for our security situation post Operation Sindoor, even though I shouldn't say post because we're still in Operation Sindoor, our regional security issues that we have, and for the growth trajectory which we absolutely have to have. So somewhere we get compromised that we cannot possibly take a very overt view, overt stand. Do you think that's a prudent way of looking at it?
There's a lot of merit in this, no doubt. After all, if you look at our longer-term interests, the one country that can actually help us to achieve the kind of ambitions and aspirations we have would be United States of America. China cannot do it, obviously. It's an
Won't
adversary.
do it even if they can.
It's an adversary. Russia has limitations. Europe is divided. Europe has capacities, but it is divided. It's not under a single government. Who else? United States is there, so we have to keep the United States on the right side. I entirely agree with that approach. And especially now with a man like Trump, who is unstable. And
Transactional.
well, that you are very kind. I think it's not transactional. I would say that there's an issue of his mental stability.
This tweet that you did.
Allies in India, quote unquote, says Besant, who has been running us down all these months. Since when have we been allies? Patronizing still. Good actors, permitted them, having to revise their position because rising oil prices affect the American consumer too. Telling us it is temporary reprieve and that they will revert to strong arming us. It is like a prisoner on parole. They should understand that such condescension and talking down to other countries leave long time diplomatic scars.
It was regarding the oil comment.
Yeah. The
That we are allowing India.
yeah.
The 30-day
But
reprieve.
before I come to that, I still think that we could have preserved all our equities with the United States and with Trump by condoling the death on a humanitarian basis,
Sure.
not targeting the United States anything of Khamenei, and also this sinking of the ship. Look, even the allies of the United States have done it. The Prime Minister of Spain has been very bold. We need not be as bold as that. No need.
Yeah.
No need.
No, there have been some European.
Even Starmer has
capitals.
been bold with in this respect. The Norwegians together, all four of them issued a condemnation of the United States attacking Iran, and the ASEAN has issued a statement. Even the wretched Pakistanis, they have condemned. They condemned the killing of Khamenei. Of course, then they.
उनका क्या फर्क पड़ता है, sir?
No. Point is that this. What does he say about Asim Munir, my favorite
field marshal.
field marshal? I mean, the field marshal took the risk.
But isn't this a bit of theatre, though? I mean, you talked about Keir Starmer. Unki the bases are being used by American strategic bombers.
Yeah.
Pakistan air, basically,
They're
Pakistan
sending their
entire
look
airfield is used by them.
look at the response of Trump with regard to Spain.
Yes.
And what Starmer, he continues to talk about it. The Britain has let us down, and this and that.
And he says this is not a Britain of Winston Churchill.
But either country is not a template that India can follow, can it?
I said no. I have already said that very clearly. We shouldn't.
Yeah.
Because we are much more vulnerable, and we should not unnecessarily take issues with a man like Trump.
It's somewhere a middle path.
Not even a middle path, slightly on the side, marginally.
Okay.
We express something which helps us to maintain our dignity and our position as a leader of the global south.
All right.
Just that.
Okay.
And nothing would have been lost by just condoling the death of Khamenei or of these sailors without mentioning the United States. But we didn't do that. Now, with regard to
This
the
kind of
future,
thing. Yeah.
when a chap like this Deputy Secretary of State, Landau, comes here and he talks very well about how they look at relations with us in the future and everything else. But he says what a lot of people have been saying for some months now amongst themselves here in India, that please don't rely on the United States because they are not going to let you grow. They let China grow, and et cetera, et cetera.
He said it aloud.
He said it aloud.
It was. Don't you think it was refreshingly transparent?
Well, I think there's
You're a
another way.
diplomat, sir.
There's
In
another-
America, they have people who come into these positions who are not from traditional diplomatic service. These are maybe an investment banker, maybe a lawyer. They don't measure their words.
Yes and no, because this assumes that there is no State Department and there is no people down the line, South Asia Bureau, this and that, and the Under Secretary of State and the Secretary of State himself, and who meets Jaishankar very often, and often says the right things. So it's not as if nobody is guiding them as to what position they should take. And in this case, he knew he was coming here. He knew he was going to speak. He had prepared his remarks. Even Mr. Gore, who's otherwise very active, didn't advise him that don't say this. Obviously, he got no advice from the U.S. Embassy here. that don't say this kind of a thing, because you're undermining everything that you are trying to do with India, and India will remember, and decision makers will remember
Yeah.
that this is the hidden strategy of the United States, that they will engage India, develop ties with India, but calibrate them, control them, so that that India does not grow into, like China, into a country that can challenge the economic interests of the United States and become a competitor.
But do they really think that India has that potential to become a competitor? Because this
why not?
this actually is the street view, I'm guessing, in America, because that you're seeing the anti H1B, you're seeing the Indian immigrant tweets which are coming in social media and Instagram and TikTok, where they're saying that Indians are taking away our jobs. They're the highest paid in America. The CEOs are all are all people of Indian origin. It's a different matter that those guys are not even green carders. They're holding American passports. So I just don't understand where that kind of panic is. We are nowhere a competitor to America as far as our economy is concerned. We're just about a middle income.
Couple of things. One is that I don't know how many, what's the nature of the employment picture in the United States. How many people are there who are in the area of employment opportunities? It's a 300 million people plus country. I don't know how many active people are there who are looking for employment. So if you look at, I don't know what the figure is, but several dozens of millions. And how many Indians are there? There are 5 million in all, but this includes families and children and everything else. So if you really look at the kind of jobs that Indians can potentially take away from the Americans, it'll be a minuscule slice of that large opportunities they have. So it's not as if every chap who passes out from Ivy League universities is threatened because a handful of Indians
and it's going to hurt them because in the universities, full tuition paying students from India for undergrad studies, they're not seeing America as an option now. They're looking at Europe, they're looking at Australia, they're looking anywhere where they're not going to be any attacks on them, and there are job opportunities. If this kind of a comment which was made at the Raisina gets replicated in domestic politics in America, it's going to hurt American universities, American companies. Well, good luck to them. This was the quote. He said, we are not going to make the mistake we made with China 20 years ago in terms of saying, oh, we're going to develop all these markets, and then the next thing we know, you're beating us in a lot of commercial things. We are going to make sure that what we do is fair to our people. If you remember, Obama had said this. President Obama, before he became President Obama, had said, study math, otherwise you will be Bangalored. And you're talking about, what, 15, 20 years back he said that? It's said it, but in a more cruder way in that.
Should we be expecting American charity? Essentially, that's what it is.
No, I'll stop you there.
Yeah.
When has America been charitable to us? In fact,
I'm saying in the context of China. See, right now, China has the supply chain choke
in the
points.
Context of us? Why is it?
Even their F-35s cannot be made without Chinese spare parts. Trump is going to China in April just to iron out trade issues over there. The kind of leverage China has over America, maybe Mr. Landau doesn't want India to have the same kind of leverages that China has right now.
Look, if we're going to look at our own ambitions, we are the fourth largest, third largest in a few years, then second largest by 2050, definitely. I remember attending a lunch in the French Foreign Office. Where were very, very high-placed people present, and the French economy minister made a presentation, and he circulated a document which showed the countries in the list of the first 10 countries in terms of GDP, and that was about 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And then it was, I don't know what year it was, 2030, 35 or whatever it was, and then 2050. And in 2050, only one European country according to that document, would be in the first 10. And in the middle period, there were 2 or 3. And India was number 2 in that list. I didn't have to do any publicity for India. He did it for us.
Yeah, you, just to make clear, you were the ambassador, Indian ambassador
This was later.
to France.
This was later.
This was later.
This is much more recently. And now if we're going to reach that status and we're going to be a $30 trillion economy, then what happens? Then what happens? Then we have the heft and we have the economic power to be a competitor in some senses of the United States of America. It's not as if we will be the same country as we are today vis-a-vis the United States of America. So if that is the trajectory that everybody accepts India will have in terms of our growth, and that's the position we're going to reach, then it is inevitable that if power has shifted towards the east because of China, it will shift even more towards the east because of the rise of India. Right. And in that list, Indonesia was mentioned amongst the countries, I think, number 4 or number 5 position. Now, if that happens, then you can see the transfer of economic power. So in that situation, then what happens? You look up India as a competitor, or you look at India as having the capacity to have a much more equal, balanced relations with the United States. This is bound to happen. So what is he talking about?
But how do we reach that 30 trillion? The inputs of production, who will be our technological partner for us to get there?
It'll be United States of America and Europe.
Precisely.
And Japan, and in certain niche areas, even Russia. And then, of course, now that the Middle East and the Gulf countries have been destabilized, but we were doing a lot of things with the UAE, precisely in the areas you mentioned, artificial intelligence and semiconductors and this and that, because they want to be in the forefront of these new technologies, and they have the money and they want to develop their own countries as hubs for that. And they know that India can play a very vital role. So that perspective is also there. So I can't say, point is, it's not either or, that America doesn't feel the need to collaborate with anybody. It will sort of, withdraw to itself totally and will not cooperate with anybody, because cooperation with anybody means that the other country will become a competitor. And therefore you isolate yourself, then you will decline. You will decline. So they don't have a choice either. Why do they want to reach out to India? Why are they developing all these global capability centers? Why is there this talk that if you want to have scale, then you have to come to India? They look at the number of people in India who are working on semiconductors or on artificial intelligence. Look at the numbers that are there.
Yes, and the market size as well.
The market size, potential market size, this and that. They need us too. What they want by expressing these kind of sentiments is that we'll make you our partners, but you will be under our control. But what will happen is that they will lose control willy-nilly as soon as we develop our own capabilities. They'll become dependent on us, not in an aggressive way like China. China has a very different way of doing things. They have controlled already certain key raw materials and certain technologies, and according to well-developed planned thinking and achieving that kind of capacities, which is holding the rest to ransom in a sense, because they can't do without it. India's whole philosophy and approach is different. It's much more cooperative, that you gain and we gain.
Wasn't that the strategic blunder that the West doesn't want to repeat with India? That they basically gave away their manufacturing capabilities to China?
No, this is assuming that China had no agency in this. I think China planned its rise very, very carefully. After all this BRI and that investment in so many countries in raw materials, critical raw materials, and then developing the processes for defining those, and which now are very visible in terms of the control they have over electrical vehicles and lithium batteries and solar
critical
panels
minerals
and everything else. And they have done it. And they have done it. And the kind of technology that they are demonstrating, even these wretched robotics, I mean, even MERS, when he went there, when these robots were doing these flip-flops and everything else, nobody has been able to master that technology so far. these robots because it's guided by artificial intelligence.
There's an argument that Chinese manufacturing also, because of such lax guardrails essentially to the relationship, they stole a lot of that IPR of the West. I mean, those robots also, Boston Dynamics, which is an American company, was very far ahead in this technology.
That's possible.
Repurposed by China.
That's possible, but do you think that...
DeepSeek, repurposed OpenAI and all these other LLMs,
Yeah, but do you think that the Americans... You see, you look at the statement, look at the speech that the vice president of Trump made.
J.D. Vance.
No, vice president of Trump in his first...
Mike Pence.
Mike Pence. Look at the speech he made. It's very instructive where he said that, he mentioned all these things, that there is an all-of-country approach by China in terms of extracting the best out of America in terms of technology and this and that and that. If it was true, it's such a masterful strategy that China pursued. And it's how many years ago? And since then, what have the Americans done? Some efforts to control the flow of technology. Europe is still not sure what they want to do. They've not been able to reach a consensus on how many restrictions they should put on Chinese investment, especially in critical areas and getting access to advanced technology in Europe. Germany, the biggest partner of Germany is China, not the EU's partners. Biggest partner is China. And the transfer of technologies from Germany to China. Why? Because they want their industry to survive. And China is a huge market. They did it for gains. Why did the entire process of globalization start? Americans started it. Why? Because their corporations wanted to go to countries where they would have cheaper labor. And then they will be able to, from those areas, export back to the United States and to the rest of the world. And Americans were very, very, very happy because they're getting goods at cheap cost.
Right.
And who was gaining? The U.S. corporations. And who are the U.S. corporations? They are the ones who are, you can see how they're manipulating even the White House and the entire Congress and everything else. So now to say that, we let the Chinese do what they want. Partly it is true. The Chinese took full advantage of the weakness of the American system and the profiteering by U.S. corporations. They took full advantage. We don't have that capacity. We don't have that kind of mindset. And we are far more law-abiding. So we are much more open and transparent. We are a much more civilized country in that sense.
So I want to talk about the partnership with Americans. Many countries are now thinking and recalibrating their national security policy and one comes like they're moving military assets from East Asia towards West Asia because they don't have the systems now to protect all their partners in West Asia. You've served in many of these countries in Europe as well as in West Asia. You understand what Turkey is going through right now. You know what France is going through. What took even the Americans by surprise is what the French president said, Macron said, and I'm quoting, "To be free, one must be feared. To be feared, one must be powerful." And then he talked about increasing their nuclear capacity, their nuclear warheads, and said that we will not even inform the world how many nuclear warheads we are going to be producing. And then he said he roped in several countries and said, you can be part of this umbrella. Germany, Poland, Netherlands, Belgium, Greece, Sweden, Denmark, they could all take part in these exercises and nuclear capacity to increase the nuclear capacity. It's got everybody rethinking about, is it wise that we depended on America as our security provider? Japan is remilitarizing itself. We discussed this at the Raisina also, that Japan is remilitarizing. Korea is wondering what to do. If at all China gets ambitious with Taiwan, who has the capacity in the ASEAN region, which is the one nearby, to help out? Nobody has the capacity now and nobody wants to. Europe will not because they are stretched themselves. Since last year's Munich Security Conference to this year's Munich Security Conference, even Europe is rethinking. West Asia did not till now. Now, as you know, that it's happened with that UAE is rethinking. Saudi Arabia is now meeting with Pakistan and saying, we have a security arrangement with you. So let's rethink on that. How are you seeing the next couple of months go? There's utter chaos with every country recalibrating now.
Insofar as Europe is concerned, they are shocked at the kind of breakdown that has occurred between the United States and Europe, which began in Trump's first term. And Trump has been very clear that he doesn't like the EU. He wants the EU to be broken up. You know, he's a man who doesn't want to deal with any kind of institution. He wants to deal bilaterally with countries because then he can exert U.S. power bilaterally. Once he has to deal with institutions, then he can't exercise that coercive power that he would like to.
Like BRICS also, he wants it to be decent.
Yeah. So they were dependent on the United States and NATO for their security, and all was going very well under Biden because Biden was targeting Russia and fully supporting Ukraine, and they went along with that. And then Trump comes and he starts reaching out to Putin directly, bypassing Europe. Now Europe doesn't know what to do, and Europe realizes that on their own they can't support Ukraine. They don't have the wherewithal, either in terms of money or weaponry. So they are caught in a kind of a limbo, and which is also affecting their geopolitical status globally, and also creating divisions within Europe, because countries are beginning to feel pressure of the kind of money transfers and other things that they're making to Ukraine, while their own social problems are increasing on the ground for a variety of reasons. So, and then Trump has delivered a blow to Europe by claiming Greenland.
Yeah.
So they don't know how to address that. When a NATO partner is claiming the territory of a NATO country, does Article 5 come into play? Doesn't come into play.
But attack now on Turkey would make...
Turkey, I don't know about that.
If that is also Article 5 then?
I think it is Israel.
You mean Israel?
Israel might
Israel
have done it.
Yeah, Article 5 comes into play now. If they do?
I'll come to that later.
Okay.
So Europe, therefore, now is realizing that they have to develop independent capacities. Now, that's going to take a long time. You can't develop these independent capacities in 1, 2, or 3, 4 years. You have to keep investing in defense and this and that. If they keep investing more and more in defense, it will be at the cost of their social
Oh yes, they'll have to
programs.
work weekends.
Social programs. And Mesh has said that, this kind of a thing that you work for 4 days and this and that nonsense.
Yes.
And Baerbock earlier has said that I don't care about what the social costs will be for our society. We have to spend more on arms and everything else, because he's pushing them to spend 5% of their GDP, which some countries are saying no. Spain has said categorically no. Hungary has said no, whatever. So they are in a dilemma. Now, the question I ask myself is all this rearmament of Europe being visualized in the context of permanent hostility with Russia? That there will not be any security architecture in Europe which will accommodate both Western Europe and Russia. It's only then this makes sense. But if, let's say, 1, 2, 3 years, 4 years from now,
A bridge is built.
then what's the justification for rearmament?
Absolutely.
And if they are so well armed, and if Macron says that, to do this and to do that, where will that military power and that sense of strength that they have now, where will that be directed?
But would Russia do it? So you know Putin, you've met Putin.
No, where will this be directed?
Would
China?
there be?
Huh?
China then?
China, no.
Would be an option.
China is
China.
even stronger than Russia.
No. As in this European,
so
newly
therefore-
armed Europe.
Exactly.
It'll
It'll be destabilizing for the Europeans' periphery.
Yes.
North Africa will be obviously an area where they'll exercise. Where else? There's no threat from the West, and if a threat from the East is stabilized, then where will they exercise this? I'm not saying that they have this in mind. Is it what?
But that's a hypothetical.
No,
Realistically, the Russia problem will always keep coming up till Ukraine doesn't completely fall and become a
But
NATO
that's a very strange view they have of Europe, that they'll be in permanent hostility with a
So would
country like
Putin
Russia.
agree
Would
to
Putin-
something
yeah.
like this? Would you know? You met him. Would he
Agree to
would
what?
he- would he agree to a bridge with Europe?
Of course.
He-
He's been saying it all along. He's been saying it all along. Even now, I can tell you, if Europe reaches out to him, he'll respond. He sees no virtue in this for himself. And he knows the limits of his power. He doesn't want to get embroiled in a war with the NATO. His strategy is essentially defensive strategy. Now, you look at European discourse, that Putin's economy is in trouble. He's losing 30,000 every month. That his whole strategy has failed. He wanted to checkmate NATO. NATO has expanded, this and that. They keep saying that. All entire list of how Russia is on its knees. And then they say, Russia is going to attack them. Russia is going to attack a NATO country. We feel very insecure. We have to protect our future generations from Russia. You can't have it both ways. That Russia is on the verge of defeat, but Russia also has become so strong, and their military capacities have grown so much that they are going to be a threat to Europe. It doesn't make any sense. Their narrative doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
And
So does he want an off-ramp? Does President Putin want an off-ramp now with the Ukraine war?
what does off-ramp mean? That's
In the sense
American
that-
Peace.
terminology.
No, okay, peace.
Peace.
Of course. Look,
To get out of this war, does he want
He
to-
immediately had, look at the Minsk agreements. For 7 years, he waited for the Minsk agreements to be implemented on the ground. And now, Merkel and Hollande say, a few months ago, 1 year ago, that actually we wanted to buy time. So they didn't implement the Minsk agreements. And what was the Minsk agreement? Crimea will become Russian, but the entire region of Donbass will remain under Ukrainian sovereignty. They didn't implement the Minsk agreements, and then immediately after he invaded Ukraine, he went to Istanbul, and there again they could still have saved Donbass, at least the two regions which now are under their control, Zaporizhia, and there are four regions.
Okay.
Two of them he has since taken control of. But those could have remained with Ukraine. But the British and the Americans sabotaged the Istanbul talks. Even today he's engaged in talks with the Americans.
Oh, Donetsk.
And in Alaska, they agreed on a game plan with the Americans. And they are saying, look, you agreed, it was your proposal, we signed off on it, so you can't go back on it.
Right.
So they are ready for peace, but now the terms are hardening in the sense that now Crimea apart, even these four regions will remain part of Russia. So to that extent, Zelensky will have to make territorial concessions. But if he makes those concessions, he'll be no longer
And
president of
Putin
Ukraine.
cannot go back to his people after 4 years of
No,
this
they've
war.
changed the constitution. There's no way.
Yeah.
There is no way.
Yeah.
Can
So-
we talk about our pet peeve, Pakistan?
Yes.
How do you, as once you very
Oh,
famously
one-
said, the
one-
annual itch, let's talk about pet peeve.
But but the nuclear thing, that's important.
Right. Macron and nuclear.
Yeah. Thing is that the United States did not want France to become nuclear. They tried very hard. And that's the reason de Gaulle threw NATO out of, of Paris. And they signed the NPT only in 1992 or something. They didn't sign the NPT in 1970, whatever it was. Because their argument was that NPT is discriminatory, the same argument.
Which we
That
had,
we had,
yes.
That's why they were very sympathetic when I was ambassador there, I can tell you that. They were very sympathetic when we had a nuclear test. And then de Gaulle described the French nuclear deterrent as tous azimuts, which means it is pointed in all directions, which meant
America also.
against the United States and against Germany if you need it. And today you have a situation, and then it will be totally always under national control. Now when he says that I'm going to...
An umbrella.
Umbrella and this and that, first of all, Baltic countries, Poland and others will not trust the French nuclear umbrella. They will trust the US nuclear umbrella. And then the other very delicate point in this is that one of the conditions for when the NPT was signed, that Germany will never have nuclear weapons or
That's
a finger
true, yes.
on the nuclear trigger. And now Macron is saying,
The first country he names is Germany.
they're saying that we are going to together plan nuclear this thing and that thing.
Poland, Germany.
No, Germany.
Yeah.
It's violative of the NPT. It's violative of the NPT. So I'm surprised that, and I've commented on that in my posts, that I'm surprised that he has taken this line.
Yeah.
And it'll-
Just on the nuclear questions now, after we're seeing this American sort of retrenchment from being the global policeman, so to say, do you think that in the next few years, which countries do you think could become nuclear powers now? Saudi Arabia, Japan?
Japan, there's already there is a developing opinion. I don't think they will do it quickly. They will do it in the
No, their
foreseeable
entire
future.
DNA is against
So,
nuclear
but,
weaponization.
they are
But
talking,
Sanai Takichi
but they are
came in this
talking
platform.
about it, but I don't think so. They'll do it in the foreseeable future. Now, of course, if for any reason Iran's nuclear program is exterminated, if you like, then there is no push for other countries to develop nuclear weapons. But if Iran's nuclear program is no longer under control of the IAEA, and if they decide
IRGC.
to walk out of the NPT, then yes. Then
So will Saudi Arabia be the first one to own it? They'll just tell Pakistan, give us your crown jewels. We underwrote it, so now we want it.
And protected that also.
Well, they'll have to have American consent for that. It's a very serious step. It's a violative of the NPT. It's very seriously violative of the NPT. The entire Russia would be deeply opposed to this. So I don't think it's an easy decision, but they can talk about it. But
What are these talks then Saudi Arabia is having with Pakistan? What is the security provider that Pakistan is supposed to be?
basically, that Pakistan in the past has provided security to the Saudi royal family, as you know.
Yeah. And then the Houthis.
And
Now
then
it's not Houthis.
Then it's the Houthis, and then there are these big differences between Saudi Arabia and UAE relating to not only the Houthis but also Somalia and stuff like that. Sudan, they are at loggerheads with each other. And after the Israeli strike against Qatar, I think Saudi Arabia began to feel nervous. So actually, it doesn't make any sense. I think the Americans have encouraged this defense pact between the two. He wants to give his field marshal, whom he admires, a larger regional role. And that's what they're doing, which is a problem for us.
Will Pakistan live up to that? That being some kind of a...
They've gained a lot already. You know, from a country which was considered, and we've been trying to
A pariah.
promote that narrative, epicenter of terrorism and everything else, a threat to the security of the region. You have a situation where America is encouraging a much larger regional security role for Pakistan and for the Pakistan military. It's an uncomfortable message to us. And then it has also created a little ripple, I think, in our relations with Saudi Arabia. Because you have a country which we consider as the primary threat to our security, now providing security to Saudi Arabia, which means that the Saudis do not look at Pakistan. Of course, I don't expect them to look at Pakistan the way we do, but at least in certain fundamentals, that Pakistan is a problem state. And now the thing would be that Saudi, if they want proper protection from Pakistan military, which means they have to strengthen the Pakistan military, which means that they have to give them more money, they have to finance their programs, which means that Pakistan will be able to buy more from China, which means there will be greater problems for our security. I mean, what's the point in saying that we have a defense agreement with you and you must come and protect us if the Pakistani military remains under threat from India? So they have to beef up the Pakistan military so that it is no longer threatened or dominated by India. Now that is the logic of this. Whether this actually gets translated into actual policies, I don't know, but there is a concern.
It's India and Afghanistan now for Pakistan. right? They would need protection from India, protection from Afghanistan, so they would need to ramp up their
Yeah, but where will they get the money from?
from Saudi Arabia.
So that's where the problem is.
And
Now,
Qatar also, and Azerbaijan also, all these countries,
they don't have the money, but Turkey is a problem. We are not highlighting it, but
they need oil, so they can
No,
say,
Turkey is
don't give
very
us money,
active.
give us oil.
Turkey is a NATO country. It has NATO level technologies, NATO standard technology, military technologies. They have an independent technological base. They actually also manufacture F-16s and drones. They can step up their arms
Which we
supplies
saw
to
during Sindoor.
arms supplies to Pakistan. That's also a threat. So we have we have a problem.
I want to come back to
Okay.
Hormuz, the actual conflict at hand. So right now, it's been over 120 hours, I think, that the Strait of Hormuz has been essentially a no-go area for ships. The EM in Parliament said that this is a major supply chain disruption. My question to you is kind of a hypothetical also, is at what level does this from a supply chain risk become a national security issue for us vis-a-vis our LNG imports from there? And if it's a national security issue, can we see potentially Indian Navy boats with American boats opening up and providing security to vessels?
Absolutely not.
Strait of Hormuz?
Absolutely not. The last scenario you mentioned. But it's a huge problem for us because the price of oil has risen to $114 from 70 something. It's terrible for us because with each $1 increase, if sustained over a year, it adds almost $2 billion to our oil bill. So this has to be settled very quickly. And now the problem is not simply Iran closing or not closing the Straits of Hormuz. It is the insurance companies that they don't want to insure the ships.
Yes.
United States will never take the risk of sending in their navy to open up the Straits of Hormuz because they will lose their naval vessels. Because the deep water channel in the Strait of Hormuz is in the Iranian territorial waters. And they don't need long-range missiles or even short-range missiles, torpedoes and other things. They can sink anything. So it's a huge, huge danger. The LNG business is a problem because we are highly dependent on Qatar for LNG.
Right.
And they have stopped producing LNG. So we'll have to look for elsewhere. Of course, there are other sources. Australia is there.
America is
Canada is there. America is there.
Nigeria.
So we'll have to pay more. But if it is all sustained, it'll add to our bill. And it'll add to our economic growth and everything else. It's a big, big problem for us. There's no doubt about it. LPG is a big shortage. And then it can affect, large. In fact, our public also start affecting them too. Therefore, our interest is to see if this can be got over as quickly as possible. But it's not in our hands.
I know that the private insurers have pulled out. Lloyd's of London, very famous such insurer. But President Trump said that America will underwrite these cargo vessels, will do the insurance. Do you think that's feasible?
Of course not. Of course not.
Yeah.
No question. When he says this, what does he mean? I mean, that after all, it's not the American exchequer that's going to pay for this. So, American insurance companies, why should they do it? No, this is all talk. I mean, he just talks for the sake of it. That is one. The other is that what you said, that India at some stage choosing to be with America to forcibly open up the Straits of Hormuz, that is not a realistic scenario at all. In fact, indirectly, to answer your question, that how important it is in the context of our interest in the Middle East, that the entire politics of the Middle East should be determined by Israel. Is it that Israel's security is the centerpiece of our security? Now, the points you are mentioning, it hurts our security. So we sacrifice our security for Israel's security and for America's backing of Israel. We have been put in a very difficult situation because we have excellent relations with Israel, which we want to continue. but it is imposing tremendous cost on us. And we don't have an easy answer.
We can't look away from the geopolitical reality that Israel is essentially America's sort of big land carrier in the Middle East, right? They're inextricably linked at this point. So now in that situation, I want to ask about the operationality that's happening between Israel and America vis-a-vis Iran. I saw yesterday that they started targeting fuel depots and hurting civilians in Iran. They haven't hit Kharg Island, which basically takes care of all of 90% of Iran's crude oil exports. What, as someone so senior in the MEA back here, how do you read this over there? That they're not attacking Iran's export ability, but domestic consumption.
Yeah, but that is clear now. Haven't they waived, given us a waiver for 30 days to buy Russian oil? Completely going back on all that they've been doing for the last 1 year. Threatening us, imposed punitive tariffs on us, that you're on the wrong side of history, it's immoral. You are responsible for the killing of Ukrainians because you're fueling Putin's war machine. Totally
rubbish.
Oblivious to Europe buying even more oil and LNG from Russia.
China.
And United States and China, of course, the biggest buyer of Russian oil, and United States itself buying uranium and other palladium
Fertilizer,
and other things.
for them.
Uranium hexafluoride.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So now they are saying that we want to keep the oil prices low because the oil prices in United States have shot up from $2.97 to $3.48 a gallon. So it started hurting them. So that's why they've done that. And the interesting thing is that really what they're making it easy, not making it easy, they want Reliance to buy this oil, Russian oil, because Reliance exports refined products. And then it sort of sucks in a lot of Russian oil. Niara and our other public sector companies, they are only catering to the domestic market. They are not catering to the export market. So, in a sense, they have helped Reliance to get access to Russian oil. But the point is that if this lingers on, if this continues, and the oil prices keep shooting up, then what does the rest of the world do?
Yeah.
Now, the other point is...
Pakistan has just 10 days more of supplies left, I believe.
The other thing which you talked about, Kharg Island and this and
Yes.
that. Now, supposing they attacked Kharg Island.
Or even for that matter, Bandar Abbas and all. Basically, the export.
Okay, then what happens, assuming in the worst case scenario, that Iran hits at the Saudi Aramco refinery.
A wider configuration happens.
He can easily do it.
Yeah.
They can easily do it. Then what happens? Calamity, international calamity. So you keep escalating, and the costs keep going up for everyone.
Yeah.
Iran, United States, India, the Gulf, everybody. They can do that. After all, the Houthis were attacked a couple of years ago, pinpointed attack, and Aramco refinery had to be shut down. But they can attack it. And Iran is following asymmetrical warfare very effectively. Of course, they are being punished, and they'll be punished more.
But the Iranian
See, that is
president has already apologized that should not have attacked and will not attack the other countries. But it seems like the IRGC is on their own now, and they're just attacking it despite the apology.
It's not true, Smita, because it's not quite true. Because if you look at Iranian statements, repeated statements, that if America, Israel attack us, we'll attack their bases in the Middle East.
But they're not attacking bases.
They attacked bases.
They're attacking civilian targets.
No, then what has happened?
Who is?
Iran.
Then what has happened
Iran
is...
is attacking US bases.
And
Yes,
not just...
and-
No, the other thing is that in part they're attacking hotels in which the
American
US
servicemen.
personnel, servicemen were shifted from bases to the hotels. So some of them have been
to justify it?
attacked by, of course, from the viewpoint of what is happening.
Of war.
Oh, yes. Look,
And what about
let's go
the
to
other
the
thing?
fundamental thing. Didn't the US and Israeli airplanes fly over
Terrible.
Iraqi, Saudi, and Syrian airspace?
Yeah.
So if you allow your airspace to be used to attack Iran, then you make yourself vulnerable. And then they say that the Gulf state has said they will not allow US bases to be used for attacking Iran. Okay, one can accept that maybe no planes were flying from there, but they are logistic hubs. They are service hubs. So they're very much part of the American defense system in this area.
So formally no access against Iran, but there is an access which is operable right now, and it's being used.
Unfortunately for the Gulf countries, and we should have full sympathies for them, they're caught in this bind. They didn't want this war. They tried to prevent this war. In fact, they made a lot of gestures toward Israel. They normalized, some of them normalized ties with Israel.
Yes.
Saudi Arabia,
UAE tried.
under the table, was talking very well with the Israelis, UAE openly. But and Israel was getting accepted more and more as a legitimate player in the Middle East. But then Netanyahu had this single point agenda: I have to attack Iran and have to destroy this regime. And the Gulf countries had no choice. And then they go ahead and kill the supreme leader of Iran. So what do you expect the IRGC, which is the custodian of the Iranian revolution, and with Ayatollah Khamenei as the symbol of that revolution, what would they do? They will hit back.
We are seeing in the American media a lot of headlines that, President Trump has entered into sort of like his own Vietnam over here, because when does this seem elusive? A, they did not expect Iran to have such a strong retaliation. B, it's not capitulating. The regime is very much there. Where do you see, how do you see this end? Do you think Trump can do you think Trump can just say, we won, we finished our objectives and we leave, or now he's stuck with this?
I'm very worried. I tell you why. If Iran doesn't capitulate completely, which means that the Americans and the Israelis take full control of Iran's future.
Boots on the ground, you mean?
No. Iran's future, for whatever reason.
Whatever it is, okay.
For Iran's future. They have a government that is totally compliant, which will do exactly what the United States wants. And that, actually speaking, the Iranian nuclear program will be obliterated. So no question of, enrichment limited to 3.67% or stuff like that. No, it's completely obliterated. Then the thing is very different. Then you have full control over West Asia and its politics and its oil. But supposing they realize that it's not working according to plan, and the choice of keep destroying Iran's civilian infrastructure, which they can.
Yes.
They have the power to do so. It's not going to lead anywhere. There will be resistance, more and more resistance from the United States itself and from other countries. And therefore, you have to reach a compromise, which means that the regime stays in place, which means that you're not going to be able to eliminate Iran's nuclear program, which means that the whole basis of attacking Iran gets voided. So then what happens?
Essentially an Iranian victory, because they just have to survive.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, and then the fundamental issue on which they went to war will not get resolved. Then the Arab countries, the Gulf countries are put in a very, very difficult situation. Because if they ask the Americans, please leave our bases because your bases it's because of your bases that we've been attacked and threatened. But there is no solution to the Iran's nuclear issue and Iran's missile capabilities and Iran's military prowess. Then they can't make themselves defenseless and say, please, Americans, go away. And they'll have no security cover for anyone. So therefore, the American bases have to stay. And if the American bases have to stay, then it's a rerun of what is happening now. So
it's a vicious cycle that's been started.
Exactly. Yeah. They've not thought through at all. Now, it's easy for me to say that. I'm not the American president. I don't have advisors. But purely as an onlooker, which means that one has the ability to objectively analyze the broad features without knowing real inside confidential information as to what their calculation is. But look from the outside. I can't see a solution unless there is complete capitulation of Iran. Now, the last point in this is this. From Indian point of view, are we comfortable with the idea of a restored U.S. Israeli hegemony in the entire West Asia? Are we comfortable?
If it doesn't impinge on Indian interests,
Of course it will.
in what way?
Will. I mean, look, we have independent relations with these countries. We want to develop our relations with these countries. But if these countries come under total U.S. control, then our entire cooperative mechanism is with them. All that we want to do, artificial intelligence, green hydrogen, everything else, will come under the control of the United States of America and the decision of U.S. corporations. And do we want U.S. hegemony? Do we want a restoration of U.S. hegemony globally? Because they are going to control. Already 30% they control in Venezuela, and another 20-30% they have control of almost 50% of oil in the world, reserves in the world. And then what will be the logic of India remaining in BRICS and SCO and everything else? Because then the maneuverability...
Yeah, the long-term diplomatic efforts...
Maneuverability will be so constricted. And what about multipolarity? What about reform of the UN system? I mean, everything goes for a six if you accept the restoration of U.S. hegemony, because the entire process of multipolarity is against U.S. unilateralism.
When the guns are shooting, sir, realistically, we really can't push the needle. Whatever will happen right now. And my point is that when you see this quagmire, this mess in the immediate future, what do you think the top 1, 2, 3 sort of goals should be for India in this new geopolitical math in the region?
We are having very difficult time. The hub of our relationship in the Gulf was UAE. And the UAE has been the most badly impacted by this war. With Saudi Arabia, good ties, but not compared to what we have with the UAE. So, what do? It's a big issue for us. How do we? Has United States shown any desire whatsoever to coordinate its Middle East policy, West Asian policy with India?
No.
Zero. So then how do we protect our interests? Now, we have no maneuverability left. We cannot, we don't want to stand up to Trump for right reasons.
To safeguard our economic conditions.
We can't condemn what is happening. We can't counsel him to end the war. We can't call for a ceasefire, this and that, because we don't want to annoy him. So we lost that maneuverability also. We can't tell Iran, you do this, you do that. On what basis do we tell Iran?
But our own capabilities is what I'm talking about. Our, like, essentially getting the 30-day waiver to make sure that the imports keep coming.
Look at that. After all, our Navy was very active in the Gulf. They were getting access to the ports in the Gulf. There were also projects of greater defense cooperation with these countries, with the UAE, even with Saudi Arabia, with Oman, and this and that. All that is up for a six now. How do we plan for the future?
Right.
So my point is that our interests, core interests in this region and otherwise, have been very badly damaged. I won't say that the Americans have done this deliberately to hurt our interests, but the consequences of that
are collateral damage.
Very serious collateral damage.
On that note, we should wrap up on this very serious and ominous note, hoping that, well, let's just hope that hope is not a strategy, but hopefully
that there's an off-ramp they can get off. Yeah.
Better sense will prevail, and there will be some kind of a mediation between the aggressor and the...
Well, last point can I make?
Sir, absolutely.
You see, at one time, some leaders spanning the various continents were able to get together, like it happened in Indira Gandhi's time when we had this big proposal for global nuclear disarmament. But today, there are no world leaders who can join hands, respected leaders who can then say, please stop this. Which configuration can we think of where there can be political and moral pressure on the United States and Israel to stop this, and Iran also to stop this? there is a huge vacuum in global leadership of those who can raise their voices for peace. It's unfortunate.
I don't think a US president has been there as well who has weaponized trade, their hard power as much
No,
as
US
Mr.
was never
President
there. I
Trump.
didn't have US in mind. At that time, if you remember, it was Olof Palme of Sweden and India and one or two other countries that joined hands. I forget what the other countries were. But if today, let's say, theoretically,
Yeah.
if Brazil, France, Germany, India, the South African president joined hands and issued an appeal,
Yeah.
it could have some impact. It will be Europe and Latin America
but then
and
You don't
Africa
think that,
and India.
You don't think the GCC nations together have that block, that lobbying power with President Trump that they can force him essentially to stop?
No. They appealed. They
The
appealed
number
to
of their entire economy, American economy, is on an AI bubble, which has been a large part of it has been underwritten by all that that GCC money. If that comes to a stop,
But then what do you do about the Jewish lobby in the United States? And if Trump wants to protect himself from disclosures in the Epstein files, and if there are other reasons why the United States is bent on punishing Iran and
We're going a rabbit hole now in this.
so therefore, what can the Gulf countries do? What leverage do they have? Unfortunately.
sorry, Ambassador, before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask you this question. I've always wondered when Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji had basically given the go ahead for India's nuclear tests in '99 or late '90s, the build up, everything, and you were ambassador at that time to France. What was the international reaction like? What was the fallout, the threat of sanctions on India? How did MEA and you at an ambassador level deal with all of that?
The French were very understanding of our compulsions, and Chirac immediately made a statement that France will not sanction India, and it will be business as usual with India, and that the Indian government has outlined its position and issued their nuclear doctrine, which gives space to engage in a strategic dialogue with India. So I got a call from Brajesh Mishra,
NSA then.
and I say that they want a strategic dialogue with us to Karwao. So I went to the Elysee, and within 48 hours, I think, or 72 hours, Brajesh Mishra was in Paris and had discussions. And the French tried very hard at their level to prevent, and they succeeded in that, a consensus in the West to apply sanctions on India. Because the United States was pushing very hard, every country, to sanction India. When the issues were being discussed in the Security Council, and the Security Council had passed a resolution, the French were keeping us informed, and they were as helpful as they could be within the Security Council. The problem was Canada. The Canadian Prime Minister then was hell-bent on punishing India because they felt that we had violated their trust because they had, created the Apsara reactor, their technology and everything else. And Bill Clinton, of course, was. Then we, as you know, we engaged in a dialogue with the Americans, but that's a different
What was the kind of pressure
story.
that America put on France, and how did France withhold that pressure at that time? Because we are seeing the
No, because
dynamics between
no,
Trump
no.
and Macron, and what was that like at
But
that
Chirac
time?
was very different. He didn't join the Iraq war at all. In fact, he annoyed the Americans so much they changed the name from French fries
Freedom
to
fries.
To
Freedom fries.
fries.
So, but also at that time, diplomats started leaving India. They were boycotting. They were all leaving. But I think the French diplomats did not, right? They didn't vacate their embassies here. The others were all, I remember sending crews to the airport to see everybody leaving the country and
That
things
Blackwell.
like that. Yeah.
The Blackwell initiated that.
Yeah.
And in fact, I challenged him. I was foreign secretary then. I had just taken over a few weeks earlier. And I expressed my surprise that the American embassy seems to be more concerned about the fate of their personnel in India because of the imminent threat of the nuclear war, whereas the Indian government, according to him, is indifferent to the fate of 1.2 billion people, whatever the figure at that time. That, as I said this, that is there any indication that has come from the government that we are concerned about a possible nuclear strike, and precautions have been taken, and some instructions have been given to civil society and this and that to take this and that and that. I was speaking at a forum organized by CII, and the American representative was there, and that is the first time that anybody has challenged the narrative Blackwell was promoting. So I don't think that the Americans were very happy with this. So no, the French were very steadfast, very supportive, and there are other things that they did which are difficult to reveal at this point in time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for spending time here and defogging the concepts that we are so confused about. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for watching or listening to this edition of the NR podcast with Smita Prakash. Do like or subscribe on whichever channel you've seen this or heard this. Namaste. Jai Hind. This episode is powered by Shiprocket. Click here to watch the previous episodes.